So this week I'm looking at another design that will be ideal for Easter using this fabulous longiflorum lily. So today I'm using some of the Easter lilies, otherwise known as the longiflorum lily. I've got a pretty little daffodil, some roses and some hydrangeas. Let's see what I can create. My container this week is a green basket, and sometimes the plastic liners aren't brilliant inside these, so I've put my floral foam into a plastic little dish. That's a product by Oasis, and I can link that in the description box at the end. And remember that I'm trying to link all the sundries and the containers that I use in the affiliate links at the end. So if you decide you want to buy them, there's an easy solution. You can click the link, it'll take you to Amazon, and you'll be able to purchase any of the items that I'm talking about. Right, so I've filled my green plastic dish with some floral foam. I know the floral foam is a bit contentious and it's not very good for the environment, but there are lots of people who can't get hold of Agri-wool or can't get hold of more sustainable products. So I do try and change the videos and alternate the mechanics that I'm using. So if you look back at the longiflorum lily design I did last week, and I'll link it in the cards here, you will be able to see me use the Agri-wool. And if you're new to flower arranging, hello, welcome. My name is Sharon. It's lovely to see you. Please ask any questions in the description box below, or join me in my secret group on Facebook. It's called Sharon's Innovations Group. Search for it, answer a couple of questions on flower arranging, and then you'll be in my secret group. And there you can share ideas, ask questions, and there'll be some hints and tips that I don't talk about in the videos as well. And today I've got the longiflorum lily again. So we have looked at this once before, and I'm just going to show you a different way of arranging the same sort of flowers. And that's how I'm going to start. If you haven't done flower arranging before and you're not sure how to prepare your floral foam, then I'm going to link the Back to Basics series just here. You can pop back, have a look at it, and it'll explain to you how you prepare and how you use your floral foam. Right, so let's start with the lily. And I'm going to use it straight up in my floral foam, almost like a parallel arrangement. And again, I can link that. If you want to look at the parallel designs that I've done in the past, I'll link it in the card so you can go back and have a look. But I'm going to bring them in straight upwards. And I mentioned it in the previous video, I don't like the longiflorum lily, and it's a personal taste. I don't like them mixed in randomly with other flowers. I think it's got such a distinctive shape head. It's a shame, I think, to hide it in amongst a load of other flowers. So what I'm going to do here is place them alongside one another so we get almost that parallel lines that we've looked at in floral designs before. So I'm grouping the materials together. On the left hand side of my floral foam, and I'm making sure that the heads are facing in different directions so that when they open, they're not going to squash the flower next to them. They're almost like a prima ballerina. They're going to be in a position on their own so that you can see them really clearly, and they're not going to be hidden by lots and lots of other material. So 3 placements, probably an inch or 2 apart, and at the moment, well, hopefully they'll be there forever. They're on the left hand side of my floral design, and because they're quite tall, you need to make sure they've gone into the foam quite deeply so they don't tip over and move from side to side. Now my next flower I'm going to use is a rose, and this is a new rose that I haven't used before. This one is called Snowstorm, and it's a bit of a green, got a bit of a green tinge to it. So not as white as I was expecting with the name Snowstorm, but it's really pretty rose. And I'm going to start, oh, that's not a very good one, that's snapped. So we won't be using that one, or maybe we can use it lower down. So these are a commercially grown rose, and you can normally tell by the length of the stem. Supermarket roses are often much shorter. But what I'm going to do with these is almost repeat that column shape, but on the right hand side of my arrangement. Just going to slightly move that lily to give it more space. But I'm going to use these quite tall, high up the back. So again, when they open, they hopefully won't interfere with the placement of the longiflorum lily. And you know, as the lilies open, if I feel that they're overcrowded and I haven't allowed a lot of space between them, then I can always move them slightly to give them a bit of extra space in between. And what I'm going to consider is, do I move that little centre lily before I start? So I'm just going to have a quick look. There's enough space in my foam to move him to the left. So what I'm going to do is move him over to the left. It gives me a little bit more space in between so that they can open up in that area there. So I'm more happy with that. So you know, those first placements weren't quite right, so I've moved them over slightly, and that gives me my first 2 placements within the floral foam. And then I have this ruscus. Now you might recognise this. I don't know if I've used a lot of ruscus in designs so far, but this is again a florist material here in the UK. If you've got it growing in your garden, then I'm very jealous. But this is something that we buy in to use often in wedding work. It gives you a lovely cascade if you're looking for a teardrop sort of shaped bouquet. It's a beautiful dark green leaf, and I use it a lot in buttonholes because it's a long-lasting foliage and looks really good, sorry, against the white rose. So you'll see I've just bought a little bit of the ruscus in on the right hand side of the arrangement, and everything is still upright. Now I've got 2 palms, and what I don't want to do with these palms is place them in so they overfill that back part of the arrangement. So what I'm going to do with these is cut them slightly so that they make almost a spear shape. So they're a rounded, more pointed shape. And I'll just concentrate on getting that right. Concentrate on talking at the same time. And I've got that more pointed linear shape, and it makes your eye travel upwards. This is quite fat, quite broad, and it's going to be a little bit dominant behind my longiflorum lilies, which is where I'd like them to go. So, much better shape, and I'm going to tuck these in the back, just behind those lilies. Low enough again so they're not going to interfere with the heads open, but it gives me some material towards the back, which is going to aid depth. What do I talk about in every arrangement? It's going to make your eye travel from the front to the back. And when you're doing a parallels type of design like this, that's quite important, because the design can end up looking quite flat if you don't stagger your materials from the front to the back. I'm just cutting this one a bit shorter so that I've got more space between the heads. That's better. So that's how it's coming together so far. I don't want to overfill this area here, but what I do have is a really pretty selection of Narcissi. Small yellow centre, almost remind me of fried eggs, which possibly isn't a very good compliment. This is how they came from the supermarket. And what I'm going to do is put them in like that in the bunch. Really dainty and really pretty. And just like when I did the St. David's Day arrangement a little while back, I'm going to put them in a cluster. You need to take your time because the stems are quite soft, but it works really well there in the centre. Brings that tiny splash of colour through to the middle. Now I have a really large white hydrangea. This is going to be a flower that I'm going to bring right down to the bottom. But I feel that the size of the head is too big for the overall arrangement. If I just put that alongside it, it's very large and very dominant, and it's not in keeping in scale with the rest of the design. So what I'm going to do is just cut off some side shoots to make that head a bit smaller. I think that's probably more appropriate. And scale is one of our principles and elements of design, and I talk about them on a Friday night chat. So if you're unsure about principles and elements of design, pop back and have a look at that one. There's lots of information on the YouTube channel which will really help you understand floral design. And I've pushed it down quite close to the foam. Now hydrangeas, as the word says, hydrangea are very thirsty flowers. It's actually a bract, so it's a modified leaf. The flower is this very insignificant centre part here, and they love water. If you've got plants in your garden, they need to be in an area that's well watered and well hydrated. If they are out of water for any length of time, they're very, very hard to get them to rejuvenate and come back to life. One tip, if they're just looking as if they're a bit sad, a bit forlorn and they need a bit of water, put the whole head in a bucket, leave it overnight, and it will take up water through the head, and that will really help your hydrangea come back to life. So what I've done with the smaller pieces I cut off, I've inserted them here at the back. Already my foam is covered there at the back, and it balances off that larger section of hydrangea that I have at the front there. My original plan was to use some of the small Santini chrysanthemums on the opposite side, but what I'm now thinking is that the texture and the colour here is very, very similar, and there's not going to be enough contrast for me to separate off those two flower materials. So what I'm going to use instead is a really large open garden rose, and it's very open, but it's still fresh. So don't think that I'm putting in an old flower that isn't going to last very long. This is a variety called Candlelight, and it lasts for ages. It's quite tight and small when it arrives. It opens up very quickly into this big head, and but they last for ages and ages and ages. And for me, it's a better shape, better texture, a little bit of a contrast in colour, and these are going to work far better tucked down low, and I'm going to go slightly lower hopefully than the hydrangea, so that we have two different levels of our flowers. Hopefully I can get that in without damaging it. And I know if you're at home and you can't get hold of big roses like this, you're probably shouting at the screen and saying, "Oh Sharon, we can't get those." But it's a nice treat. So we've had them in this week because we're back into full-on wedding season, and this has gone out for a very lucky bride who was delighted with her bouquet. And what I've done there is I've tucked 3 down low on that side there. And if you can't get hold of these big roses, you could use a carnation. That works just as well. Block them together in the front there, and you get that real dramatic emphasis from the flowers. Later in the year, it could be a peony. Obviously, depending on where you are, it could be a protea. What else is there that's going to come up in the garden that's quite big? You could even in the spring use some ranunculus grouped together, and that's going to give you the same effect. But what do we think of that one so far? Now I'm going to add a little bit of colour onto the side that has the ruscus, and I've got this wonderful Veronica, again a flower that will grow in the garden quite easily in the summer months. I brought these in again from the wholesalers. Lovely linear material, and they're going to help to break up that quite heavy concentration of green on the outside. And I'm doing exactly the same. I'm grouping them together in those strong parallel lines into the floral foam. And we've looked at the parallel design a couple of times, and it is quite a formal arrangement. And this just goes to show you that when the basic rules are learnt, and once you understand the basic principles, and you can then play around with the basic rules that you've learnt, and you don't have to keep those lines quite as rigid as we did in the very beginning when we learnt that parallel arrangement. You can add it in so the design becomes a bit softer and more playful. Now that one doesn't want to go where I want it to go, so stay there. That's better. And then I'm going to bring one up just a bit taller to meet the rose so that we have that lovely staggered line down from the top to the bottom. This is probably going to be my final placement. I love the Veronica, and they, again, another one that we have a lot of during the wedding season. That's going to tuck in quite nicely at the back, and I think I'm pretty much done with that arrangement. So what do we think of that one? That's a lovely one for Easter, and again, if you've got some Easter treats, you might have some chocolates or some eggs, you could incorporate them somewhere into the base of the design. You could add in some tall twigs or branches and hang some Easter eggs from it. There's lovely decorative ones that you can buy in the shop. Just a little idea of how you can use those beautiful longiflorum lilies, that fabulous Easter lily. And I'm hoping that you've enjoyed that one. So again, thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you again very soon, and bye for now.